My name is Eliza Gaines, and I'm the managing editor of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. And I'm joined by reporter Ginny Monk, who recently completed a project on child deaths in Arkansas. Today, we're going to talk about her two stories, one that covered gun violence deaths and another that focused on child suicides. So first of all, this project took a tremendous amount of time and effort. So thank you for all of your hard work on this important topic.
Thank you.
So your project addresses unnatural deaths of children in Arkansas, deaths that are often preventable. Talk a little bit about what sparked this idea.
So I started on this project in 2018. We were just sort of going through death reports of children and didn't really know exactly what story we were going to be telling. And I was just kind of struck by how many of them were preventable, especially the suicides stuck out to me. I've written about that topic a few times in the past. And so we just decided to kind of tackle these different areas, common ways in which children die in Arkansas.
Was there anything that surprised you while you were doing your research?
Yes. So first of all, this is a future story that we're working on, but I had no idea how many children die of sudden unexplained infant death. I didn't realize how prevalent that was. And then with the suicide story, the ages of the children surprised me. There were a few that were under the age of 10, which was really just tough to think about and not something I realized that children that young killed themselves.
That's the thing that surprised me the most. I think the story about the 5-year-old who committed suicide, it was very upsetting. I mean, they're all upsetting, but that especially hit home since I have a 5-year-old, and I have never heard of someone that young committing suicide. So speaking of that, this is obviously an emotional and heartbreaking topic. What was your experience talking to families about the child that they lost?
I mean, it was tough. They're obviously, many of them still going through this, trying to figure out how to deal with their grief. And I think a lot of them it's tough for them to think about what could have been done to prevent this. But I was glad that they did talk about it. I think a lot of people kind of liked the opportunity to tell other parents, like, hey, I wish I had talked to my child about suicide, or I wish I had locked up every gun in my house, that sort of thing.
Right. So were there any roadblocks or challenges while working on this project?
Yeah, so the bulk of the time reporting on this was actually gathering the death reports, which took over a year. And it was through different FOI requests to county coroners, I think some of whom had not really dealt with the open records law before and weren't aware of it. And some of them just didn't have all of the records. There were several counties where the previous coroner before he left office, had taken the records that he created with him when he left office, so those just weren't available.
What do you hope changes as a result of these stories that many people will read and hopefully will be widely circulated?
I mean, I hope fewer children die. I think
yes.
As a reporter, you're supposed to stay unbiased, but I feel okay having the opinion that I would like fewer children to die.
Yes.
And that we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but with the suicide story in particular, I went to a suicide prevention training for educators. Well, it was mostly educators there. It wasn't specifically for educators.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that kind of struck me about that was how many people think it's not okay to talk to your child about suicide, and that the people at the training were saying it's absolutely necessary.
Why did they think it wasn't okay to talk to your child about suicide? That it might be too disturbing?
Too disturbing, and I think there's a widespread belief that talking to a child about suicide will put the idea in their head. But at this training, a lot of what they told us was that if your child is thinking about suicide, talking to them about it is helpful, and you're not going to plant the idea of suicide in someone's head.
Right. Yes. And then in terms of gun safety, I was thinking, and I think you had this in your story, that when your child has a play date at someone's house, you ask if they have allergies, or you ask, what the children will be doing. But a lot of times you don't ask about gun safety. Do you have a gun in the house? Is it locked up? So, that was kind of eye-opening to me. That's one of the things you should be asking, on play dates, is about if there are guns in the house and how their children are protected.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing to talk to people about, just because, I think they're right. Like, I don't have children, but I've, dropped little siblings and cousins off at playdates, and I ask, like, are you going to be swimming? Is there going to be an adult here? These are their allergies. All of those things like you discussed, but not guns.
I think that's a good takeaway from the story for sure. Well, thank you, Ginny. You can read the stories on our website, arkansasonline.com, or in the Sunday edition of the paper. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.